I didn't really want to do a video about this. This is why it's at 1 p.m. and not early in the morning, but we got to talk about Jeff Bezos and the National Enquirer. They tried to extort him, according to Jeff Bezos. He published the emails, so if you're not following the story, I do want to go through the gist of it. But more importantly, the reason why I decided, you know what, let's talk about Jeff Bezos' wiener is because Ronan Farrow has now come out saying that the National Enquirer tried to blackmail him too. So now we're getting freaky. Now we're getting real freaky. So let's start with the story about Jeff Bezos. We'll go to National Enquirer. In an explosive tell-all blog published Thursday, Jeff Bezos accused the publisher of the National Enquirer of trying to extort him. The post by Bezos on the blogging platform Medium revealed what he said were the full text of emails his representatives got from executives at AMI, the publisher of National Enquirer. Bezos, the billionaire founder and CEO of Amazon, alleged that AMI threatened to release compromising photos of him. His post included what he said were emails from AMI detailing what he described as extortion and blackmail. And the reason why they're saying it's what he described is because when you're going to get blackmail and extortion, when you're going to get extorted, people are smart to not overtly say, do this or else. So I guess what happened in the instance of Jeff Bezos is they said, hey, we've got photos of you. If you're willing to, retract these statements, we won't publish the story, which is pretty damn close to blackmail and extortion. But I don't want to say this, because then I don't want to get sued. But the point is, they had this huge list of all of these photos they have of Jeff Bezos, like him standing naked in front of a mirror. Jeff Bezos, you know what this reminds me of? So anyway, there's the gist of it, right? The National Enquirer is accused of trying to extort and blackmail one of, if not the wealthiest man on the planet. And it reminds me of Batman, I think, The Dark Knight, the Dark Knight movie, where the dude goes to Morgan Freeman and he says, I want $10 million a year for the rest of my life. And Morgan Freeman goes, let me get this straight. You think your boss, one of the wealthiest, most powerful men on the planet, is a vigilante who secretly goes around beating criminals to a pulp with his bare hands, and your intention is to blackmail this person? Good luck. That's where it's like, dude, do you really think you're going to be able to go up against Bezos? Apparently, Jeff Bezos hired a security guy and said, I will spare no expense. Okay, you have to recognize there is power in being a billionaire. Look at what happened with Peter Thiel and GAWKER. GAWKER published a story about, they outed Peter Thiel. So what did Peter Thiel do? Over the span of years, it hired people to figure out an attack vector to destroy GAWKER, and he did. Okay, people with those kinds of resources. Listen, there's a few things you need to understand. It's not just that Jeff Bezos has this money and power. It's that he was able to accrue it in the first place. He is a man of a certain set of skills, as it were. And your intention was to blackmail this person? But let's read on. Because apparently they went after Ronan Farrow too, which is crazy because Ronan Farrow is not without recourse either. Something unusual happened to me yesterday. Actually, for me, it wasn't just unusual, it was a first. He says, I was made an offer that I couldn't refuse, or at least that's what the top people at the National Enquirer thought. I'm glad they thought that because it emboldened them to put it all in writing, Bezos wrote. Rather than capitulate to extortion and blackmail, I've decided to publish exactly what they sent me, despite the personal cost and embarrassment they threaten. But this was a smart move. This is probably the smartest move he could have done, because there's no way the National Enquirer could publish those photos now. If they did, people would be like, well, that proves it, doesn't it? It's not newsworthy. And that's what's fascinating, is that what Jeff Bezos was arguing is that, dude, nudes, they're not newsworthy. And that's the same thing kind of the same thing that happened with GAWKER and Hulk Hogan. So dare I say, this may be a GAWKER 2.0 scenario, but Bezos is doing a very different route. Peter Thiel was subversive, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. He bided his time, he sat back and said, let's figure out how we can take down this, go after them for what they did to me. Jeff Bezos says, I want everyone to know what's going on. Very different strategy. Bezos titled the story, No Thank You, Mr. Pecker. And then the story says, some of Bezos' text messages were made public last month. Bezos and his wife, Mackenzie Bezos, are getting divorced. Yeah, we know all that stuff. But anyway, let's go on to the Ronan Farrow stuff, because this is essentially the newer thing, right? I feel like everybody talked about Bezos, but Ronan Farrow, journalist, he's the guy who broke the Harvey Weinstein stuff, so he's really prominent in a particular space. So hours after CEO Jeff Bezos accused National Enquirer's parent company AMI of trying to blackmail him, Journalist Ronan Farrow said he received similar threats from AMI while reporting on the relationship between the Inquirer and President Trump. Farrow tweeted, "I and at least one other prominent journalist involved in breaking stories about the National Enquirer's arrangement with Trump fielded similar stop digging or we'll ruin you blackmail efforts from AMI. I did not engage as I don't cut deals with subjects of ongoing reporting. Bravo." Bezos revealed on Thursday that after the Inquirer published a story exposing his relationship with Lauren Sanchez, he hired investigators to determine how the tabloid obtained their text messages. He was then approached by AMI and told embarrassing photos and texts would be released if he did not halt the investigation. AMI is led by David Pecker, one of Trump's longtime friends. What I do find fascinating, though, because I think this might come up later today when I do the show with Joe, if it does. You've got these Twitterati, some people call them, this journalist cabal. I'm being somewhat facetious when I say that. But you've got this network of journalists, mostly based out of New York, they're left-leaning, and they run defense for each other and threaten people. They publish fake news about people. It's almost in line with what the National Enquirer does. But I think it's fair to point out the National Enquirer absolutely pushed that line really. They crossed the line to an extreme degree. But you've got GAWKER. Like, this is the best example. GAWKER literally outed a gay man, and it could have gotten Peter Thiel killed. This is the most important point. It's like, listen, you want to embarrass Jeff Bezos? That's messed up. That's not okay, right? It's not newsworthy. With Peter Thiel, he has business dealings in countries where they kill, people who are LGBTQ, etc. So this put his life in danger, and he was pissed, and they didn't seem to care. They're like, it's newsworthy. Why is it newsworthy, the sexual or the private life of someone like Peter Thiel? So he goes after him. But the point I'm trying to make is, when you see these stories, they'll drag Trump, they'll say, oh, they're working together, and the National Enquirer was coming to his defense. But what about these other news outlets? When GAWKER gets taken down, everyone goes, oh no, GAWKER, oh geez. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to listen, I think there are some real journalists who've worked for these companies, and I don't want to disrespect people who do actual journalism, but you gotta admit, what's the difference between the GAWKER network and the National Enquirer? Okay, obviously the National Enquirer is, I think the National Enquirer is like what predates these New York websites. They're the same, in the same vein, if you were to ask me. The National Enquirer makes these sensational headline, ridiculous news tabloids. I'll be fair, they're way more over the top than GAWKER ever did. But what GAWKER does is, when I talk about fake news and how the left gets away with it, what they try to do is take the truth, they take one little piece of the truth, this tiny little grain, and they go and stretch it as far as they can and make up ridiculous nonsense. You can look at one example. The Verge wrote a story in which they mentioned Blair White. If you don't know who Blair White is a transgender, conservative, Trump supporter, YouTuber. And they accused Blair of being a white nationalist. When Blair said, dude, that's fake, that's not true, instead of correcting, they added a huge paragraph with a bunch of just misleading information, absolutely unfair, taken out of context. That's what they do to you. They don't care about the truth. They want to destroy you. And so when I see this, it kind of makes me chuckle. Because the National Enquirer basically is trying to pull off GAWKER 2.0. Are you nuts? I gotta say, it's pretty bold to approach Bezos and even other journalists like Ronan Farrow and threaten them. Because I'll say this now, I'd probably go the Bezos route. I am not an individual who deals with these kinds of people. You want to publish some nonsense about me? You want to threaten me? We go scorched earth, motherfucker. So you're gonna learn. I hope these people learn a lesson about what happens. Now hold on. I will say there is something that can be scary in all of this. First of all, don't blackmail Bezos. That's wrong. You're the bad guy. Don't out Peter Thiel. You're the bad guy, okay? That is his private life and his private business, and it's insane. GAWKER got dragged later for outing another media, I think it was a CFO. Don't do that, right? You've crossed a line, okay? People's private lives, things that can get them hurt, not cool. Not cool. But we also have to recognize it is pretty scary when billionaires can tell you, shut the fuck up. So in this instance, you've got the National Enquirer, wealthy and powerful, threatening journalists. And that's where we see this kind of mirror to what's going on, which can be scary. 100% can be scary. So do I want to live in a world where billionaires can point their billions of dollars in resources at you and say, you're not reporting on me? No, I don't. But Jeff Bezos was the good guy in this situation. The National Enquirer were the wealthy, powerful going after him. The only problem? They went after someone of more means, of more power, who was willing to stand up and say, scorched earth, motherfucker. We're gonna let everyone know what you're doing and why you're doing it. So, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who don't have that power. And that means even though Peter Thiel was able to win, there are a lot of people every day who aren't. And that's why I don't like a lot of these people. I've worked at these companies. I've met these people. I've sat down. I've listened to them speak. And it's not all journalists. It's just this select group of bad apples. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot. You know, to people within their own communities don't want to hold each other accountable, plain and simple. So there needs to there's something I was going to say something needs to happen, but I really just don't know. I really don't know how you solve these problems. So anyway, stick around. I've got another video coming up at 4 p.m. I'm going to be talking about the Green New Deal. My God, the Green New Deal is insane. It really is. I can't believe it. I seriously, youtube.com/Timcast, Green New Deal. That video will be at 4 p.m.